Whisper Library. We believe in books.
Ew!
Everyone wants to be great. Very few are willing to practice the way greatness actually requires. Most people repeat what they already know. They stay comfortable. They stay average. But elite performers, in music, sports, business, or leadership, practice differently. They practice with intention. They practice with discomfort. They practice where failure is likely. That difference has a name: deliberate practice. And it's not talent. It's not luck. It's not obsession. It's a method. You're listening to Whisper Library. This book is not theory. It's not motivation. It's a hands-on guide to building skill the hard but reliable way. Geoff Colvin explains that improvement doesn't come from time spent. It comes from how that time is used. Deliberate practice means clear goals, focused effort, immediate feedback, pushing past comfort, fixing weaknesses instead of repeating strengths. This workbook is designed to help you apply those principles to your own life, your career, your learning, your performance. It teaches you how to practice on purpose, so progress becomes inevitable. Chapter 1. What deliberate practice really is. Most people believe practice makes perfect. Geoff Colvin begins by correcting that myth. Practice makes permanent. Deliberate practice makes progress. Deliberate practice is not repetition. It's not time spent. It's not doing what feels comfortable. Instead, deliberate practice is a structured method designed to improve performance in specific ways. It focuses on clear goals, full concentration, and working at the edge of your current ability. Colvin explains that ordinary practice reinforces habits you already have. If those habits are flawed, repetition simply strengthens the flaws. Deliberate practice does the opposite. It isolates weaknesses, breaks skills into parts, and targets the areas where you struggle most. This kind of practice is mentally demanding. It requires effort, focus, and honesty. That's why it's often uncomfortable, and why most people avoid it. Another defining feature is feedback. Deliberate practice depends on immediate, accurate feedback to guide improvement. Without feedback, you can't adjust. Without adjustment, there is no real progress. Colvin also emphasizes that deliberate practice is purpose-driven. Every session has a reason. Every drill has a measurable outcome. You don't practice until you're tired. You practice until you're better. The chapter makes one thing clear. Talent is not the deciding factor in excellence. The deciding factor is how intelligently and intentionally you practice. If you want real improvement, you must stop practicing what you're already good at and start practicing what you're not. That shift, from comfort to challenge, is where deliberate practice begins. Chapter 2. Why ordinary practice? Fails. Most people practice a lot and still don't improve. Geoff Colvin explains why. Ordinary practice is designed for comfort, not growth. When people repeat the same task over and over, they reinforce existing patterns. If those patterns are average, practice locks them in place. Time alone doesn't create expertise, it often creates stagnation. Colvin points out that once a skill becomes automatic, the brain stops paying attention. Attention fades, learning stops, and performance plateaus. This is why years of experience don't guarantee excellence. Ordinary practice also lacks specific goals. People say, "I'll just practice more," without defining what they want to improve. Without clear objectives, effort becomes unfocused and improvement becomes accidental. Another failure is the absence of feedback. Practicing in isolation gives no signal about what's working and what's not. Without correction, mistakes repeat quietly. Colvin highlights the comfort trap. People gravitate toward what feels easy and familiar. They avoid weak points because struggle feels discouraging. But avoiding discomfort guarantees limited progress. Deliberate practice reverses this pattern. It demands concentration. It targets weaknesses directly. It replaces vague effort with precision. The key lesson of this chapter is blunt. If your practice feels easy, you are not improving. Growth happens where effort feels uncomfortable and attention is fully engaged. The moment practice stops challenging you is the moment it stops working. To improve, you must be willing to practice in ways that feel slow, difficult, and mentally demanding. That discomfort is not failure. It's proof you're training correctly. Chapter 3. The Role of Focus and Mental Effort. Deliberate practice demands one thing above all else: complete focus. Geoff Colvin explains that improvement does not happen when attention is divided. Multitasking, distraction, and casual effort prevent the brain from forming stronger skills. True practice requires intense concentration on a narrow objective. This is why deliberate practice is mentally exhausting. When you focus deeply, your brain is forced to adapt. It identifies errors, adjusts techniques, and builds new neural pathways. Without this effort, progress stalls. Colvin emphasizes that short, focused sessions are more effective than long, distracted ones. An hour of full concentration can outperform several hours of unfocused repetition. Quality of attention always beats quantity of time. Mental effort also means awareness of mistakes. You must notice what's going wrong as it happens. Ignoring errors or practicing on autopilot keeps flaws hidden and uncorrected. The chapter also addresses mental resistance. Deep focus feels uncomfortable. The mind looks for escape, checking a phone, changing tasks, lowering intensity. Elite performers train themselves to stay present despite discomfort. Colvin suggests creating practice environments that protect focus, remove distractions, set specific goals, and define clear start and end points. This structure signals the brain that serious work is required. The core message is simple. Deliberate practice is not about grinding longer. It's about thinking harder. When attention is sharp and effort is intentional, even small practice sessions create real improvement. Focus is the engine that turns effort into skill. Chapter 4. The Importance of Feedback. Deliberate practice cannot work in isolation. Without feedback, improvement becomes guesswork. Geoff Colvin explains that feedback is the mechanism that tells you whether your effort is moving you forward or holding you back. It turns practice into a learning loop. Attempt, evaluate, adjust, repeat. Feedback can come from many sources: a coach, a mentor, data, video playback, even honest self-assessment. What matters is accuracy and immediacy. Colvin emphasizes that fast feedback accelerates learning. When correction follows closely after performance, the brain makes stronger connections. Delayed or vague feedback weakens improvement. The chapter also addresses a common mistake: seeking only positive feedback. Praise feels good, but it rarely produces growth. Critical feedback, when specific and constructive, reveals weaknesses that must be fixed. This is why elite performers actively seek critique. They don't avoid correction. They depend on it. They view feedback not as judgment, but as information. Colvin warns that feedback must be interpreted carefully. Not all opinions are useful. The best feedback comes from those who understand the skill deeply and can point out precise adjustments. Self-feedback also plays a role. Recording performance, tracking metrics, and reviewing results help you see patterns you might otherwise miss. The core message is clear. Practice without feedback is repetition. Practice with feedback is progress. If you want to improve deliberately, you must be willing to hear what's wrong, fix it deliberately, and repeat the process without defensiveness. Feedback doesn't slow improvement. It makes improvement possible. Chapter 5. Stretch beyond your comfort zone. Improvement begins where comfort ends. Geoff Colvin explains that deliberate practice requires working at the edge of your ability, the zone where success is uncertain and mistakes are frequent. When tasks feel easy, your brain is not learning, it's repeating. Growth only happens when you attempt something slightly beyond your current skill level. Colvin calls this the stretch zone. It's uncomfortable by design. You feel slow, you feel awkward, you fail more often than you succeed. But this is exactly where adaptation occurs. Many people avoid this zone because it feels discouraging. They interpret mistakes as signs of inability. Elite performers see them differently. Mistakes are signals. They show where improvement is needed. The chapter explains that stretching must be controlled, not chaotic. Pushing too far leads to frustration. Not pushing enough leads to stagnation. The goal is incremental difficulty, small increases that demand focus without overwhelming you. Colvin also emphasizes patience. Stretching beyond comfort does not produce instant results. Progress appears gradually as the brain adjusts and refines skill. Another key point is recovery. Because deliberate practice is mentally demanding, rest is essential. Short, intense sessions followed by recovery outperform long, exhausting ones. The message is direct. If practice feels safe, you are not practicing deliberately. To improve, you must repeatedly place yourself in situations where effort is high, focus is sharp, and failure is possible. Discomfort is not a warning sign. It is proof that practice is working. Chapter 6. Build structured practice routines. Improvement rarely happens by accident. Geoff Colvin explains that deliberate practice requires structure, a clear system that guides effort toward measurable progress. Unplanned practice leads to randomness. Structured routines create consistency. They ensure that time spent translates into improvement. Colvin outlines key elements of effective practice routines. 1. Define specific objectives. Each session should target a precise skill or weakness. Vague goals like "get better" waste effort. Clear goals create direction. 2. Break skills into components. Complex abilities should be divided into smaller parts. Mastering individual components allows you to refine technique before reintegrating the whole. 3. Set measurable benchmarks. Progress must be tracked. Metrics, repetition counts, or performance indicators reveal whether improvement is occurring. 4. Schedule. Regular sessions. Consistency builds momentum. Short, frequent practice sessions outperform occasional intense bursts. 5. Review and adjust. After each session, evaluate results. Identify what worked, what didn't, and modify the next session accordingly. Colvin stresses that routines should evolve. As skill increases, challenges must change. Static routines lead to plateau. Structure also reduces mental friction. When practice is planned, you spend less energy deciding what to do and more energy executing. The core insight of this chapter is simple. Deliberate practice is systematic, not casual. Those who design their routines carefully create steady progress. Those who rely on motivation alone progress unpredictably. Mastery favors discipline over inspiration. Build structure, follow it consistently, and improvement becomes reliable. Chapter 7. Maintain motivation and resilience. Deliberate practice is effective, but it is not easy. It requires sustained effort, discomfort, and patience. Geoff Colvin explains that motivation and resilience are essential for continuing the process long enough to see results. Unlike casual practice, deliberate practice rarely feels enjoyable. It exposes weaknesses. It demands concentration. It produces frequent mistakes. Without resilience, many people abandon it too soon. Colvin emphasizes the importance of purpose-driven motivation. Improvement is sustained when you connect practice to meaningful long-term goals. When effort aligns with purpose, temporary frustration becomes manageable. He also highlights the role of small wins. Tracking incremental progress, even minor improvements, reinforces commitment. Visible progress builds confidence and momentum. Another key element is mental framing. Viewing difficulty as growth rather than failure reduces discouragement. Elite performers reinterpret setbacks as necessary steps toward mastery. Colvin encourages building routines that support consistency. Fixed practice times, clear expectations, and supportive environments reduce reliance on fluctuating motivation. Recovery and balance are equally important. Rest, reflection, and perspective prevent burnout. Sustained improvement requires sustainability. Finally, Colvin stresses persistence. Skill development is gradual. breakthroughs often follow long periods of plateau. Those who remain committed through stagnation are the ones who advance. The lesson is clear. Deliberate practice is not just physical or mental. It is emotional. Motivation keeps you starting. Resilience keeps you continuing. Together, they make mastery possible. Chapter 8. Applying Deliberate Practice to Your Life. Geoff Colvin closes the workbook by bringing everything together, showing how deliberate practice moves beyond theory and becomes part of everyday life. Deliberate practice is not limited to athletes or musicians. It applies to leadership, communication, technical skills, creative work, and problem solving. Any field where performance can be improved can benefit from intentional training. Colvin encourages readers to begin with self-assessment. Identify the skill that matters most to your goals. Then pinpoint the specific weaknesses within that skill. Improvement begins with clarity about what needs work. Next comes planning practice cycles. Set focused sessions with defined objectives. Measure progress, seek feedback, and adjust methods. This structured repetition transforms effort into results. Colvin emphasizes long-term commitment. Deliberate practice is not a short experiment. It's a continuous process. Consistency compounds improvement and gradually builds expertise. He also highlights adaptability. As skills evolve, practice must evolve with them. Challenges must increase. Goals must shift. Stagnation signals the need for adjustment. Finally, Colvin addresses mindset. Adopting deliberate practice means embracing discomfort, welcoming critique, and measuring success through progress rather than ease. The chapter's closing insight is powerful. Excellence is not reserved for the naturally gifted. It is built through methodical effort, intelligent practice, and sustained discipline. When deliberate practice becomes a habit, growth becomes predictable. And when growth is predictable, mastery stops being mysterious and starts being achievable. In the end, this workbook delivers a message grounded in discipline rather than inspiration. Improvement is not accidental, it is engineered. Geoff Colvin dismantles the comforting belief that time, repetition, or talent alone lead to excellence. Instead, he presents a structured approach where growth is driven by intention, feedback, focus, and resilience. The principles are consistent across every field. Define precise goals, concentrate deeply, confront weaknesses directly, seek accurate feedback, stretch beyond comfort, practice with structure. Persist through difficulty. Excellence, the book argues, is less mysterious than we assume. It is the cumulative result of thousands of small, deliberate adjustments, each guided by awareness and effort. This perspective replaces frustration with control. You are no longer waiting for talent to appear or motivation to surge. You are working within a system where progress becomes predictable through disciplined practice. The workbook's greatest contribution is practical empowerment. It transforms improvement from an abstract concept into a repeatable process that can be applied to any meaningful pursuit. Deliberate practice does not promise ease. It promises reliability, and reliability is what builds mastery. And that was Deliberate Practice Workbook, a reminder that greatness is less about inspiration and more about intention. If this journey sharpened your focus, challenge yourself to apply even one principle tomorrow. Progress begins with one deliberate step. This is Whisper Library, where ideas don't just inform, they transform how you grow. Until next time, practice with purpose and let effort shape excellence.